choices shape the market, our society, and our quality of life. That's why Euroconsumers helps millions of people in their daily choices, providing simple solutions to complex problems. Euroconsumers is a cluster of organizations, a network of people, a group established to protect consumer rights and well-being that brings consumers and companies together in transparent relationships of trust that respect their independence. Our deep understanding of products and consumption gives consumers a credible, expert voice worldwide. We bridge the gap between buyers and manufacturers, between supply and demand. And in this digital age, we create opportunities for all parties to come together in constructive dialogue, partnering to build a future of better products and services. Euroconsumers has the power of a global group that believes humanity can develop, grow, and change for the better, and that we can promote this by uniting millions of consumers in strength and speaking responsibly for them, while simultaneously engaging in relationships of trust with responsible, sustainable companies.
Hello and welcome to the first Start Talking after our summer break. Start Talking today is called Renting Consumer Products as a Service, Costly Gimmick or Green Dream. You've probably all rented or leased a product, perhaps a car, or maybe you've rented one of those carpet cleaners for a one-off job. But would you rent a sofa or lease a washing machine? Would you subscribe to your daily coffee? These are the kind of new product as a service models which are emerging in the market. Consumers subscribe to or lease products instead of owning them outright. Then the manufacturer or provider provides a sort of wraparound lifetime care for that product. So they will repair it, replace certain elements, and at the end of its life, take back that product, recycle it properly, refurbish it for further use, or maybe remanufacture certain parts. And this is a really important element of PaaS, or products as a service, that many people see it as the answer to stimulating the circular economy. And we really need that to happen, to move away from the current take, make, and then dispose of a sort of cheap, short-lived product that we have. We need to shift that into a system where products and all the materials and resources that make them stay in the system for much, much longer. So this is one way of doing it. But we've got some questions. Are consumers ready for the end of ownership? Do they want to have these kind of long-term care subscription relationships with companies? Will it actually save them money? And most importantly, where does it fit into the wider challenge of providing durable, long-lasting products which will contribute to a circular economy? Are there alternative ways to get affordable, accessible, and sustainable products into consumers' hands? We're going to talk about all of that today, and we've got with us 5 brilliant panelists who come from all different perspectives on this. And what we hope to get today is to be talking together and figuring out where some of the pitfalls are, where the opportunities are, and to really think about how we can create a more sustainable circular economy for consumers. So we have with us today, first of all, I want to introduce Bruno Vermosen, who's from the BSH Home Appliances Group, which is better known for the Bosch and Siemens brands. Bruno specialises in circular economy projects, including rental models. Next, we have Tom Tyson from the Belgian consumer organisation Test and Coupe Test-Achat. Tom's worked on product durability and repairability issues from a consumer perspective for many years. Then we have Dr. Ruth Mucha, who's Professor in Design for Sustainable Consumer Behaviour at Delft University in the Netherlands. Ruth's research explores and investigates how design interventions can stimulate sustainable behaviours, such as encouraging consumers to repair, to buy refurbished goods, or to extend the lifetimes of their products. So welcome, Ruth. Next, we have Tomohiko Sakayo. He's also a professor at Linköping University in Sweden, and he specializes in sustainable product and service systems. And he's recognized as one of the most knowledgeable experts on products as a service. And finally, we have Bertrand Tisson, who's the EU Public Affairs Director at Decathlon International. That's a company he joined back in 1995, and it's pioneered rental models in leisure and sporting goods. And he opened Decathlon's Public Affairs office in Brussels in 2020. So welcome, everybody. Unfortunately, we don't have Ilias Yakovidis today with us from the European Commission, as he's come down with COVID and is quite ill, but he very much wanted to be here. Just to say quickly to everyone watching, Euroconsumers will be live tweeting this webinar. And if you want to join in, you can use the hashtag #StartTalking. You can also follow at Euroconsumers on X and LinkedIn. And remember that you're all part of Start Talking too. So if you have questions or comments, pop them in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. Okay, right. We're going to start setting the scene. I tried to explain PaaS in the introduction, but let's turn to the people who are actually doing it and find out what it is, how it's different to owning or rentals and how it all works. So Bertrand, I'm going to turn to you first from Decathlon. Can you describe Decathlon's journey to PaaS in leisure and how it works, and how it works for you as a company and how it works for consumers? Oh, hold on, sorry. Luca, can you unmute? Can you unmute Bertrand?
I just unmute myself, right? Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Liz. So indeed, it's quite a journey. It's a hike, I would say. So we are not quite there yet. A lot is about to be, I would say, more stable over time. But from day one, I mean, the mission of our company, which started in 1976, has always been to make sport accessible, understand affordable, and product as a service could really help to that extent as well. So, but as one of the largest sporting goods designer and retailer in the world, we operate in 72 countries. We have more than almost 2,000 stores worldwide, and we definitely have an impact as a family-owned company. The stakes of people and planet are pretty big. We are responsible for goods traveling very long distances with our global value chain. We are part of the problem. And as players, we want to challenge those problems and to be part of the solution. As 80% of the company carbon footprint is product related, this is where the focus has to be set. So the goal of the company is pretty clear. As the base of 2021, we want to be by 2030 in a journey of reducing by more than 40% our carbon footprint. If you consider on the circular business model that the product impact can decrease by half, this is definitely where we should put our efforts in the coming years. From eco-design to different kind of business model, I would say, circularity, second life, repair, subscription. We try them all as we speak. We have more than 10,000 different product categories in our stores, as you can see as a consumer, from horse riding to kite surf, bike, textile, you name it. So I would say that we still need to figure out the profitability, the consumer response to those different products and the related circular business model. Again, not the same approach for a bike or high-end hiking shoes, for instance. But today we are on a try and fail mode, but we have pretty interesting feedback to share today. Yeah, definitely.
Great. Look forward to hearing about that. Moving on to Bruno Vermeusen from BSH Group. Can you talk about what you've been offering to consumers?
Yes, of course. BSH, especially with the brand Bosch, is offering different product as a service models currently on the European market in different countries. We are not active on the complete European market yet with those models, But I will focus especially on one, but just name the three models that we have. The first one is called WeWash, which is a pay-per-use model for laundry appliances, so washing machines and tumble dryers. Another one is called Blue Movement, which is active in the Netherlands and in Germany, which is a classical leasing model for large and small domestic appliances, accessible to everybody. And the third model is the one that I want to focus on, is a model that we have deployed in Belgium. It's called the Papillon project. And that is typically a rental model, but for a very specific target group. We are focusing on people living in energy poverty or people living in poverty. And this project was developed together with a social enterprise in Flanders called SAMO. And the aim of the project is to, let's say, make affordable energy and water efficient appliances to people living in poverty. As you know, that people living in poverty, they also need a fridge and they also need a washing machine. Mostly they have outdated appliances which use much too much energy and much too much water, because they simply cannot afford to buying efficient appliances. Very often those people cannot get a loan, so they can also not go and have a credit for energy efficient appliances. And therefore we are offering them energy efficient appliances in a renting model, in a full service renting model for, let's say, an average monthly rental fee of round about 10 euros. And this, as I said, in a full service approach. That means that for the time that they are renting the appliance, if it breaks down, we provide, let's say, the repair of the appliance, as we also provide the delivery, the installation of the appliances at their home. We also take back, if there is available, an old appliance. We give them a word of explanation on how to use these appliances, and then they get started. So that is a very particular approach with a very specific target group. The people are selected not by us as BSH as a company, but by our partner, the social enterprise, who has a collaboration with different social enterprises in Flanders and in Belgium, or collaboration with communes that can select the people that are eligible for our project.
Okay, so it's very specifically aimed at a particular consumer segment.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And can I bring Tom Sakau in here now?
Yep.
Can you tell us about some of the other use cases you've come across in your work?
Yes, there are actually an increasing number of product categories that are used for product as a service offerings. For example, robotic cleaners by Electrolux, heat pumps by Panasonic, and also in the automotive sector, a number of car manufacturers have offered product as a service offering by, for example, Volvo Cars and also Toyota Motors and many others.
Okay, so I think that's just sharing everyone what the range of things that could be within this model. So we've heard how the offer works and some of the rationale for how it could be profitable for companies. But let's go straight to the big question. Will this work for consumers? Will it benefit them? I've been thinking a bit about acceptability and how people would engage with this. So I'm going to ask Ruth, who is an expert in behaviours and designing for better environmental behaviour. Can you tell us a bit about how consumers care for their products and look after them?
Yeah, we did multiple studies on indeed access behaviour, and one of the studies that I would first like to introduce is a study that we investigated their behavior during usage. So we investigated people using a pay-per-use washing model. So they basically had to pay for each wash that they used, and the pricing scheme was created in such a way that the higher temperature wash was more expensive than a low temperature or a cold wash. As a result, we could clearly see that this pricing scheme, and as a result the pay-per-use scheme, stimulated the people to wash their clothing on lower temperatures. So they use the cold wash and the 30 degrees more often. And also the amount of wash is decreased. So basically sustainable behavior is of course also more than just caring and longer use. It also involves indeed washing at efficient temperature. And that was clearly witnessed at that study. On the other hand, I also know of a study that some colleagues of mine did on, again, washing machines. And they looked at the caring behavior for the regular washing machines that are in ownership and the access-based washing machines. And there, unfortunately, they also saw like a decline in caring behavior. So basically, because it's not their own washing machine, people feel less likely to take care of it and to treat it well. So to really make sure that all the maintenance instructions are successfully performed. And that, of course, is a potentially damaging effect of an access-based model, because then the caring will be reduced, and as a result, also the lifetime of these products will be reduced.
Okay, that's great. Interesting balance where if there's a provider that can tweak the way that or that they can encourage a consumer to use it, can be really beneficial. They use it in a more environmentally friendly way. But then there's also this sort of paradox that if they don't own something, they're less likely to treat it well. So you might be changing one behavior, but the other of not maintaining or looking after it remains. Yeah.
And I think many of us have seen the examples also on the streets, because of course with all the electric scooters and the bicycles that you can rent, sometimes they also end up at weird locations, so to say, and they're clearly not treated in the same way as you would treat your own scooter and bicycle. So this needs, especially the short-term rental, there's a risk that people indeed will treat them badly, and as a result, they are damaged.
Okay. And is there any ways that, if from your research and work, that we could incentivize more caring behaviors? So whether that's for a PAS product or for one that we own?
In general, and that's not specifically for products as a service, we see that caring behavior is in a way often a behavior change. People don't really take care that often of their products. And if you want to induce such a behavior change, you want to either increase their motivation or increase their ability. And motivation is then, in that sense, you should make it a bit more pleasurable. It should be a bit more socially accepted. So if all your friends and family are caring for their products, then you're more likely to do it yourself as well. We can also change the care instructions in a way that is more positive. That gives some sort of incentive, for example. And also in the ability, we can tweak. So we can make people feel more equipped to take care of their products. So that they have better understanding of what they should do. So they have better knowledge of the different care routines. They also can take care in a more efficient way. So it takes less time for them. So in that sense, making it more easy, making it less time consuming can also be ways to stimulate the caring behavior.
Okay, thank you. And Bruno, I just want to bring you in here, because have you done anything to mitigate some of these problems that Ruth mentioned?
Yes. Yes, we did that, especially in our Papillon project. Actually, we have made a very brief instruction to the end users, which is nothing more than a piece of paper, A4, two-sided, where we explain how to use our appliances, first of all, in an efficient way. Yeah, so that really you use the least energy and the least water possible. And secondly, we also briefly explain how to take care of our appliances in the correct way in order to avoid breakdowns. And actually, this is not only a kind of an information. It's like a document that we offer them, and we want them to sign the document so that they've read it and that they confirm that they will treat the appliance according to the instructions on this very simple flyer. So it's made in very easy to understand language, and the people sign that, and we see that actually the misuse of our appliances is at a very low level. Yeah. So because the people are aware that whenever there is a breakdown which is due to a misuse of our appliance, then of course they will have to bear the cost of the intervention of the service engineer. And we can clearly distinguish which is a failure due to misuse or a failure which is just used to, let's say, wear and tear of the appliance. And that system really seems to work, and we have very few or very little cases where people misuse our appliances or don't treat them well.
Okay, that's interesting to hear, and something we might come back to, because there could well be other companies who aren't quite aren't quite as fair with consumers. We've definitely seen that in other places. I'm going to turn to Tom Tyson now from Test Achat to think about some of the other consumer factors that we need to think about, and just to stress that Test Achat hasn't done in-depth direct consumer research here, because it is a relatively new market, but you know a lot about durability, repairability, and of course, as a consumer advocate, you know a lot about the consumer market and how companies and consumers interact. So really, this is your sort of observations and reflections on the PaaS market. So could you tell us what are your thoughts on it?
So as you mentioned, we didn't do any surveys yet, so it's difficult to say without making a few assumptions. So I hope you'll forgive me. So in general, I think consumers have gotten used to subscription services. They've been around for quite a few years, I would say even more than a decade now. They offer, well, quite some added value. Sometimes it's only convenience, but often they also offer an evolving offer. Think of streaming services, mostly streaming services. But there's many different types of consumers and use cases. So I think the answers that we would get would quite vary. As you can imagine, consumers, for example, I'm thinking of expatriates or consumers who are co-housing, for example. They might be more interested by subscription-based appliances and furniture than consumers with more stability. For example, a family with children who doesn't plan on moving house in the next 20 years. And they might be less tempted by the flexibility offered by the subscription. So a lot depends on the actual offer and how it relates to the things that are important to the consumers.
Okay, and can you see? I mean, one thing that I was thinking is, if this did become very mainstream, either the PaaS model or other types of rental, it's going to cost quite a lot, isn't it? If instead of like one outlay, you've got all sorts of subscriptions coming out your bank account, that's going to have an impact on a consumer's life, isn't it, and budgets?
Well, there's a lot to say about this. Also, especially because for consumers, and that, well, I think the other people in the room or the discussion can agree. In research, cost is a driving factor for most consumers on all kinds of topics. So it will all depend on the kind of the unit of measurement that is being used. So either you have a product that is being charged for this availability, so you pay a monthly fee just to have the appliance available, or in a shared setting, it might be rather pay per use. So this has a big impact on the finances that are involved with this. But let's say that we have a classic consumer that would normally purchase a device. If they tend to switch to a subscription model, I think they would wonder, well, how much is this going to cost me over the life cycle of this product? And then you risk that the cumulated subscription costs surpass the ones of just purchasing the product. Again, this is based on a very young market, especially for appliances and devices being offered for a subscription. So it's maybe too soon to tell. But then also there is a risk of consumers outspending their means. Again, we had Bruno just before mentioning the Papillon project. So it is. I think it's a very, very difficult topic, and what works for one consumer won't work for other consumers, and therefore I think it's important to keep the free choice available so that consumers can make the decision themselves. What is financially most interesting to me? Either a subscription-based model, because I'm not planning to keep the devices for very long, and I don't want to bother with selling them. Or someone that is more benefited by having the products for a longer time and having some stability in how much they will spend on this product.
Okay, thanks. And Ruth, I think when we spoke before, you had a similar concern about household finances.
If I can,
Oh, sorry.
I see all things happening, but it's okay. If I can relate to what Tom was saying, indeed, if you are overspending yourself, and well, things might also go wrong if you lose your job, for example, as a consumer. Then, if you have a car leasing, it's not a big problem. Then, yeah, the car leasing agency will show up and they will take their car in the worst case scenario. Well, that's bad, but it's still okay in a way because you can live without a car. But it's very difficult to live without, for example, a fridge. So in the case of a fridge, when you have like a rental model and at some point you're not able to pay for those monthly fees anymore, and they will take the fridge, that of course creates a lot of issues. But based on what Bruno Vermoesen was saying about Papillon, I guess with the social enterprise there, then that reduces the risk again because they will probably pay for these situations. But we also need to show that for bigger groups of people, yeah, losing a job is a real possibility, and they don't want to lose the possibility to be able to, to keep your food safely or to be able to wash your clothes. Because in the end, yeah, there's also some sort of a minimum that we should offer to people.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting point to think about as it goes. If these are to go mainstream, that for some people it'd be very convenient, for others and flexible, and for others it could actually mean less flexibility if you can't keep hold of things. The other thing I wanted to bring you back in on, Tom, was around this kind of, it's a very different way for consumers to transact with a manufacturing company. And I mean, this is also to everybody, really. Companies would previously made a product and then a retailer would sell it. But this is quite different. You're going to be having like a more direct consumer contract. So can you foresee any challenges with that, Tom?
Just looking at existing offers, subscription offers, I think increasing prices are one of the first things that come to mind. We've had, in recent times, we had, I think I can name them. We had Netflix increasing their price by 25% in the last 5 years. Spotify that has risen by 20% in 3 years. Then there is, for example, the offer of Instant Ink. I'm not actually telling anything about the quality of these offers, so that's a completely different thing. I'm just mentioning the prices just to make sure. For example, the HP Instant Ink, the price rose with 50% per page every last 2 years. Then we had price rises with Swapfeeds, Link & Co, and I can go on. So there is a general trend in subscription services that prices seem to be rising with some intervals, but that's a general trend. So it's hard to negotiate as a consumer in mid contract. If it all depends how the contract is made, of course. But if the prices start rising, how do you negotiate in the meantime? So you might have a fixed period. I think, for example, with Bosch Blue Movement, which actually is a good example of pushing consumers to longer product use and rewarding them with lower prices. But once you have the fixed price period over, then you have the issue of the risk of prices rising because you're on a monthly base then. So I think that will be the most important risk to consumers in these settings. So you're less sure of what you're going to pay on the long term. Without necessarily the product being evolving into something better, as it would be in streaming services, of course, where you have a continuously evolving offer.
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting point. I want to give Bruno and Bertrand and Tom Sakao as well a chance to come back on this, because I suppose what Tom Tyson's saying is consumers immediately think about, well, what's the small print, what the contract's going to change, because that probably happened to them in other markets, and they've seen prices creeping up and not being able to negotiate down. So have you thought through some of these problems that consumers, or issues consumers might have?
Yeah, if I may answer to that question, I think the conversation in the last minute went into the negative aspect or the risk that consumers might bear. But I think we need to shed light on the positive aspects as well, where the company providing product as a service will get a new opportunity to provide and create new values with the product users, and also capture the value by getting higher revenue. So additional value might be sort of hassle-free services that end users can enjoy from the product manufacturer, or peace of mind if they want to have. So there is also a positive aspect in the product as a service provided by the original equipment manufacturer. This is, I think, an important opportunity for the product manufacturer to extend their business to a larger range along the product life cycle. Thereby, they can make a sort of more holistic optimization of product design, service, repair, remanufacture, whatever. So this is an important opportunity to make, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally, I can see that. And I suppose it's how that's something quite new to communicate to consumers, isn't it? Who won't be used to that, and who may have had a negative experience with longer term leasing in the past. So it's sort of, how do you communicate that to consumers, I think, is probably quite a challenge in here. Does anyone else want to come in on that?
Yeah, I would like to come in on this. I think Tom made a very good point, especially in the Papillon project, for example, to offer the people peace of mind for a certain period of time. As you know, mostly we say 10 years, but it can even be longer, or it can also be shorter, because the contract can be terminated at whatever point of time. These, let's say, vulnerable consumers that step into the Papillon project, what they can miss at all points in time is a breakdown of their appliance, and then having the surprise of calling a service engineer. And we all know repair is relatively expensive. But with the Papillon project, they don't have that surprise anymore. They know that if the product breaks down, service engineer will come by, the appliance is repaired, and they really have peace of mind. And for that, let's say, for those people, this is a very important argument. And that is also why we started with the project by renting the appliances for a period of time of 10 years. That was not our proposal. It was the proposal of our partner, of the social enterprise. In that way, they could tell their clients, so to speak, that they will have peace of mind during 10 years with this product. And this for, let's say, 10 euros a month. And 10 euros a month, this is an amount of money that those people can spend. They cannot spend 400 euros on a new washing machine, and for sure they cannot spend 150 or 200 euros for a repair on a washing machine. And that's the whole concept of the Papillon project. And then, of course, the other elements, like all the elements that contribute to more circularity, to retaining value, to get access to spare parts, to get access to secondary raw materials. That is, of course, also, let's say, to the advantage of the original equipment manufacturer.
Yep, I hear that. I suppose the question I'd put to you, and Tom Sakau, I'd like to put this back to you, is those advantages that you described and the extra value, is that unique to this model? Could you have a similar value creation if you purchased a product? Because I think this might be what if I was a consumer selecting between two services, I'd sort of be wondering, what's the difference here?
I mean, the sort of argumentation of the positive aspects could be realized in the traditional business model where products are sold and the ownership is shifted to end users. But in the case of product as a service, there is one company that is responsible for the function and the maybe outcome of the product usage in the certain set contract period. So that responsibility is quite strong, sort of source of argument.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's an interesting point. So it's giving a bit more reassurance that there is somebody who's almost accountable or responsible for this. Okay, that's interesting. I think so. We're still on this subject of this new relationship that people might have with a manufacturer in this kind of offer. Bruno, can I ask you about this? Is interesting to you as well, because have you had to adapt? How have you had to adapt to this longer term relationship with consumers instead of just being shipping something to a retailer? How has that changed the way that the company thinks?
Maybe not the way that the company thinks, because we are very customer and consumer oriented, but the way the company is operating.
Yes, of course.
The issue that we have as a manufacturer is, of course, that we are typically selling our appliances, and we are, let's say, 98% of our appliances we are selling to retailers and not to end consumers. Let it be that we are leasing or renting appliances to end consumers. So this is something, although we started back in 2017 with the WeWash model, this is something which is completely new for us. And let's say maybe we underestimated a little bit the impact that it would have on our company, and especially on our IT systems. Yeah? And that is the major issue I think that we have as a company, is to how do we manage this relationship with the end consumers, because the number of retailers that are customer is limited, or pretty limited, but the number of end users potentially that we immediately directly sell to, or that we have contracts with in a product as a service model, can be much higher, can go into the millions. And how do we manage this? How do we do our asset management, and how do we ensure that we get our money on a monthly basis? This is the biggest challenge actually for our company, is to adapt our systems in order to let's say be operational in an effective way.
That's really interesting. I want to ask Bertrand the same question. How has it been as a company and to be changing that relationship with consumers, and how does that affect your operations?
In multiple ways, I would say. I will bring you some example. And what's very interesting is that we can have a combination of both the linear model, like we sell products, and now we are on the way to buy back product to our consumer. So we committed by 2030 to buy back 1 million products, tents, bikes, you name them, right? And then it offers a new avenue of relationship with new customer for the second-hand market of those, or the leasing of those buy product that we recondition, repair, and sell back. Reprocess back to the market. So the
consumer doesn't have to sell their second-hand directly. So they can sell it back to you.
The whole point is affordability, right, and convenience. So if, as a consumer, being part of a circular model means back and forth to the store on a crowded Saturday afternoon where staff is busy to sell product, is not going to work. So we need to offer this convenience, and it clicks in a new dynamic with our consumer. And then they are back to the store, and they will expose to new products. So we can also benefit for this multiple back and forth and having touch point with our customer on a regular basis. But on the positive aspect also that Tom mentioned of these new models, we can now, with this pass approach, have new category of product that would not be affordable for consumer on the mass market perspective, that we can by design manufactured to be leased out. Let me
Okay.
give you an example. So we all know the success of electricity for bikes, the e-bike revolution, right? If you apply this to hiking, so e-hiking, right, means exoskeleton. Right now, who is able to afford an exoskeleton? The US Army for their soldiers, right? It's unaffordable. But if you bring back this concept of exoskeleton in a leasing mode, where grandpa can go on a hike in the French Alps during the summertime with grandkids, by renting, not transporting, right? It's huge, right? Renting to this kind of retailers in the mountains. Well, you bring back a new way to consume sports that would be unaffordable, and our product designer will not believe that having this relationship to end consumer on this kind of very expensive product without the renting model, it doesn't work. So you see, we can have innovation, new relationships, and convenience.
Okay. Yeah. And I like the opening up of access idea and things which people wouldn't have been able to afford. The other thing I was looking at thinking about this and the type of data that companies engaged in these models say that they could have. So they see a sort of value in having data on how the product performs, so which components break down, or how many uses before something wears out, but also on how consumers are using the products. And again, I'm sorry to be negative again. The question it raises for me is, do you think consumers are okay with that, with people knowing a lot about how they use things? Because these questions have come up again and again, like, for example, for smart meters, which can say a lot about your at-home behavior. And I'm just wondering whether you think there's sort of privacy issues with the data connection to some of these services.
Can I, Liz?
Yes, of course, please.
All right. So, well, first of all, we don't use individual, consumer data. We use aggregated data for marketing reasons and this kind of stuff. However, the data related to the product is very important for a company, as we are a manufacturer, to get those kind of feedback. And again, opportunity of these circular models. Take the example of a tent. If I sell you a tent, you are going to use this tent 8 days a year. If it's on a leasing mode, it goes up to 80 days a year. So the designer are very interesting to see how long-lasting really the tent is by having this kind of, which is way more demanding in terms of, robustness and so on. Well, so there is good reason to build long-lasting products with this kind of new models, but we need to carry the data somewhere. So we have this new approach of the European Commission with the digital product passports coming up for batteries, textile within 2 or 3 years, right? This is very interesting. So in our company, we have invested 10 years ago in RFID technology. So it's a data carrier. So we can basically now have on our product, 100% of the products you buy at Decathlon today, and for 10 years, by the way, already have a RFID tag somewhere. In the future, it will be even embedded in your T-shirt and so on. So it's safe, it's GDPR compliant, but when it comes, for instance, to waste management, we would be able to have in this kind of huge factory to reprocess those end-of-life products, we would be able to basically sort in bulk all kind of chemicals, colors, whatsoever. So it's a clear path to really handling the loop of circularity. Plus, if we can, on the course of the multiple users, having the maintenance book embedded in this kind of data carrier and so on, that's basically a product-centric approach of the data, not a consumer-centric approach. So privacy is safe.
Yep. Okay. I hear that. And thank you for bringing in the digital product passport. We did have a start talking on that a while ago, which covered some similar themes. It's basically being much better able to track the components and life of a product over its life cycle. So it's easier to recycle, remanufacture, repurpose, etc. Tom Tyson, do you want to just come in on the privacy question?
Yeah, well, it's clear that there will be more privacy challenges, but I don't think they are unique to products as a service. Consumers are already using smartphones, other connected devices. They are subscribed to many different online services. They're using loyalty cards when shopping. Their license plates get recorded when they're parking, and they, of course, have the advantage of being able to drive out. So I don't think that privacy challenges are specifically a problem for products as a service, but of course, for consumers as well as policymakers and the ones offering the services, I think it should be of a big priority, the privacy concerns, and they should take care to treat them with the respect they need.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I think there is the privacy and data use and data collection is such a huge thing, and it's ongoing, and companies are experimenting with different ways of data, and then there's the pushback and new regulations. I think it's something to be aware of if that consumers may have a question about if they're engaging with these services. But the other question I had, which was sort of related to privacy, it's more about autonomy, I suppose. Ruth, you had a really interesting example about a coffee machine that refused to make you a drink until you decalcified it, which, is a great idea in terms of encouraging maintenance. But do we really want our appliances to be like controlling us like this?
Yeah, you can have a debate about that indeed. It was a coffee machine that counted the amount of coffees, and at some point indeed it would say like 25 coffees to go, and at some point indeed, 0 coffees to go. Now you need to maintain this. It's a very very restrictive way of persuading people to take care of their products. I would say that it can also cause a lot of frustration among consumers. So it's not necessarily the best way to go. I would say that indeed you have, like, on the one hand reward, on the other hand punishments. Usually reward works better. So think of incentives, think of some sort of a gamification, that you get a certain at least some sort of reward that something has been successfully achieved. And punishment should only be there in extreme cases. So in the case if something really, really goes wrong, then you can see if you can have some sort of punishment. For example, with the electric scooters, you could say, like, okay, if you really damage the scooter in such a way that it becomes unusable, then maybe you should have some sort of punishment to the owner that has caused this damage, because that's really something that you want to prevent. But I would really be a bit hesitant with the controlling and with the mandatory things. I would go more in the persuasive interventions.
Yeah. And perhaps, again, that's something that's going to be experimented or tested. It sounds like Bruno's been testing how to get that balance between responsibility but not overly sanctioning unintended misuse. So I think that's probably something that would come through as we think about the balance between usage and environmental. We've got a question. I just want to take this question that's come in, and I don't know if we'll have an answer, but is anyone aware of any studies confirming the expected environmental savings resulting from PAS? That's a difficult question because that could cover any sector. Tom Sacco, brilliant. Please.
We did life cycle environmental analysis and also life cycle costing for different product categories. And the result informs that basically there are usually sweet spots where the provider can earn more money and the consumer can save costs compared with product sales business. And this sounds like a sort of magic, but there are some sort of mechanisms and tricks behind these sweet spots. Well, as I said earlier today, the provider has an opportunity to optimize different activities over the life cycle. For example, that doesn't happen in the traditional product sales business, where product producer sells products and they want to maximize their own profit. whereas another entity dedicated to service, repair, and so on, they provide service offerings, and they also want to maximize their profits. And then usually these two different organizations don't collaborate with each other.
Mm.
This is so much wasteful, economically speaking. So that's a sort of one of the tricks for why PaaS, in some cases, is superior, economically speaking, compared with product sales.
Okay, thanks. That's really interesting. And we'll, if you can share a link to that at some point, we'll put that up on the event page, and so that some of so that the viewers can see it. So you're talking about, you mentioned sweet spots then. We're coming into like the final section now, but what I want to talk about is how we get that sweet spot. And this may not necessarily be PaaS. This could be other models, service as a service. Is that what you mentioned, Bruno? Or support as a service? Yes. Mobility as a service, all those things. What needs to be different to make these things better? So Bruno, let me come to you first. What would help stimulate a good environment for PaaS that works for companies and consumers in terms of, say, policy or behavior?
I think product as a service, it was said before, I don't remember who said it, it's one option that is offered to the end consumer. And in the end, it's the end consumer who decides which is the most appropriate offer for his specific or particular problem or wish that he or she has. And for sure, some consumers will choose some kind of product as a service model, and other consumers will choose, let's say, to take ownership of a certain product. And then I think it's up to the creativity of the OEM or the manufacturer or the retailer on how he wants to play the game with the end consumer. And as I mentioned, service as a service, I think this is something which we already see, and which exists, I think, even longer than product as a service. It's the combination of purchasing a product and then having like a contract for the service of your product. In my world of household appliances, it is offered by manufacturers, but it's also offered by retailers. If you look around, a lot of retailers are also offering this. And that is, let's say, giving you the opportunity to own your product and giving you at the same time, let's say, this no worry approach. If something happens and a service engineer comes by and repairs it, that can also be a solution specific for the problem of the end user. That, by the way, does not solve, let's say, the circularity thinking of the manufacturer, like Tom said before. Therefore, a product as a service model is a more appropriate model. But then again, if you look at the initiatives that are being taken, especially by the European Union, in the field of eco-design, for example, or in the field of waste regulation, that can, of course, also help to increase circularity. And I think with all this in the back of our minds, again, it's up on us as a manufacturer, retailer, and consumers to be creative, to offer different possible solutions from which then the end consumer can pick the most appropriate solution for his or her issue.
Thank you. Ruth, I'm going to come to you next, because one challenge, and I know we're not going to be able to solve it today, is this isn't just about sectors and products. Moving to a circular economy is huge because it's all the different types of behaviors we do. And there may be some unintended behavioral consequences. Ilias, who's not here today, mentioned one when in an email which said there's a bit of an elephant in the room, that people may save lots of money and it may be economically viable for them to do these, to have rental services, but then spend that on a flight to Australia. So I'm just pointing out the challenge of a truly encouraging, sustainable behaviours across the piece. But Ruth, what would be some other unintended consequences that you've seen?
Well, if you look at what we have been talking about today, mostly is indeed like, am I going to buy a washing machine, or am I going to rent or lease, or have this product as a service model? But what if you combine the two? So what if you have an owned washing machine just in your house, but in your holiday house, rather than not having any washing machine at all, you decide to take this product as a service because you only pay per wash. Then you're actually adding products to the amount of products, and that in the end, as a system, may not necessarily work. You could draw a similar parallel with the electric scooters that you can rent short term on the streets. If that prevents you from buying your own scooter, then of course it works very well. But if it just prevents you from taking the bicycle, then it may actually backfire, because then there's a bicycle in your shed and there's the e-scooter. So in all these cases, it's very important to consider what kind of behavior it's actually replacing, and what kind of, is it really replacing the ownership, or is it just adding like an additional behavior, which you could say is like some sort of a rebound effect, and therefore actually has a negative environmental impact. But it's always good to look at the system and the broader picture and see what's actually the result of the newly introduced system.
Yeah. So do you think behavioral science should be much more involved in the discussions around sustainability?
Well, we definitely need a link between indeed what happens from a behavior perspective and how you can look at interventions to encourage the correct behavior. Because just putting the product service models out there without indeed seeing what the consequences are and just looking at the economic benefits, that's really too limited. We really need to look at the environmental effect of the total thing that's happening, so the total system.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Tom Tyson, I want to ask you what other tools that we should look at to stimulate affordable access to more circular, sustainable products?
Yeah, actually, well, it's worth stepping a bit to the side of products as a service, but I'm quite convinced that if manufacturers and retailers, instead of well, continuing the price battle and it's a bit of a battle to well, there's no winners really. So if instead of just communicating on prices, they would start communicating on repairability, for example, or some kind of life expectancy. Well, I know, Bruno, we have had discussions before, but life expectancy within a specific standardized cycle. So they would be comparable between different brands. I think this could work and help consumers, also give them more responsibility in making a sustainable choice and choosing a device that, well, not only will be more sustainable, but also will be well, less expensive for them in the long run. So I don't think this is unique to products as a service, and then you could link some kind of buyback scheme to the product to get the materials back to the manufacturer after the end of the life cycle.
Okay, interesting. And we're coming close to the end. I want to give all of you a chance to answer and sort of make a pitch for why product as a service is or isn't so critical to contributing to having widespread affordable access to sustainable products for consumers. And I think we can all acknowledge, well, I assume we're all acknowledging it's not a silver bullet, because these are systemic problems and will need lots of different levers. So can I start with you, Tom, about you know, what that systemic change and the challenge of that, and then if you could finish by saying what contribution you think PAS can make.
Which Tom? Yeah.
Yes, sorry. I was from here. Yes, Tom Sakau.
Oh, okay. Well, I think the advantage of PAS compared with product sales is that I think could be boiled down to the scale of economy that the PAS provider can make. For example, they can repair thousands of products of the same type, same model, and material recycle of thousands or even more products, which they know the material composition of. That makes more efficient in terms of recycle yield and so on. So I think this can't be carried out. This can't be realized by each single consumer. So that's, I think, the important point.
Okay, thank you. So you think it's a really, really vital contribution towards sustainability from the work that you've done over the last 25 or so years. Okay, who'd like to go next? Why is or why isn't PAS so critical to contributing to the circular economy?
It is critical, but the business model is very fragile, right? So we need extremely good policy making, like eco-design that Bruno mentioned, ESPR regulation, all those kind of constraints that company must have. We need enforcement, because when traditional manufacturers or retailers are busy to change their path towards this circular model, right? You have pure players from China that are pouring the EU market with questionable products in terms of supply chain, management on the social aspect, environmental aspect, and so on. And they have a 3-digit growth. And they use the European market, as an open field. So we need enforcement, or because we need to protect this avenue that Tom explained and all the good aspects of it. But remember, consumer, first reason why they pick a product, price tag. Second, color. Third, maybe carbon footprint, but we are not sure about that. So we need to have a good policy-making system, enforcement, and why not tax incentive, VAT reduction for those kind of models to help us to scale and to bring into the mass market. Or those pure players pouring on a linear system by plane from China, they will be the winner, because price is always the winner.
Thank you. It's a sobering reminder. Tom Tyson, can you give us your final thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I quite agree with Bertrand. So I think that products as a service certainly have their place within a range of solutions, but I think they will shine the most in cases where consumers right now have, temporary needs for which right now they currently often gravitate towards those low cost or throwaway products. On the other hand, there is quite a risk that if we don't do it right, also on a policy level, that maybe for many manufacturers or many service offers, maybe cheap throwaway products will be more interesting than durable products in the products as a service setting as well. And then I think we will be having another of these discussions in a few years' time about where it went wrong.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Ruth, your turn.
Yeah, I also very much agree with what has been said. There's clearly potential, and for certain target groups and certain product categories can really give an advantage. But as policymakers, but also as designers and innovation managers, we really need to look at the full picture. So look at the system and look what's happening, not just like, okay, for this specific group of individuals, but maybe for the bigger group of consumers, and maybe there are subgroups that are treating it in a different way. So we really need to look at and consider these rebound effects in order to make sure that the net effect of the environmental impact is really positive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm going to give the last comment to Bruno. Please take the floor.
Yes. Yeah, I'm convinced that product as a service models have their importance, especially I think for the manufacturers to learn. And that is a bit the approach that we are taking with our 3 models, is to learn, first of all, what happens with our products in the real life, because actually when we sell a product, it's gone. Yeah, and only during the period of the legal warranty, we have access to our products and we know what is happening to our products. But outside of the legal warranty, the information that we get about what happens with our products is very, very limited, because we are not the only ones intervening on the products after the period of the legal warranty. But with product as a service model, where we remain the owner of the products, we get a very good view of what happens with our products over their entire life cycle. And that gives us a very huge amount of information about our products, about the design of our products that we have implemented today. And from that, we can learn to improve our products, our future products, not only for those product as a service models in order to reduce our costs of servicing and etc., but also for the products that we are normally selling to the end consumer through the retail channel. Also, these products will benefit from the learning effects that will be created from product as a service models. And I think that this is a very important element.
Thank you very much. So I think what I've heard across the webinar and at the end is that this is a young market. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot that we know which could go wrong, which we address to. We need to think there's learning from manufacturers. There's learning from what we know of consumer behavior and potential rebound effects. And we could learn together and co-create some and tackle some of those challenges. But there's also that thing that Bertrand mentioned. We can't forget the price. That is primarily what consumers are driven by. And so therefore there's some policy, legislation and enforcement that needs to happen to make sure that the price stays viable so that this is a market. I found this so interesting. And the breadth of products and the way that it's being rolled out and thinking about all the opportunities and challenges. I hope you've all enjoyed it too. And thank you so much for all of your different perspectives, which have all brought something different to the discussion. And thanks to everyone who has been listening and sharing comments as well. Next month, we will be talking about AI agents on Start Talking. So how an AI can help run your life. Maybe it could help choose PASs for you. And then on November, we're going to be talking about heat pumps and whether consumers are ready for heat pumps. So for the rest of the autumn, we've got a great program of Start Talking. It's been great to kick off with this topic. So once again, thanks to Tom Tyson, to Ruth, to Tom Sakayo, to Bruno and Bertrand. Thank you so much for your participation. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Power to the people. Someone used to sing. And while singing is not our expertise, empowering people, empowering you is what we do. And in tune. How? We test, analyze and compare products and services to ensure that they meet what you are looking for and comply with the law. We inform, advise, support and represent consumers. And we do this in chorus. Which is to say in several countries at the same time. Belgium, Italy, Spain, Portugal and Brazil. Then we dialogue, collaborate and sue companies if needed to make sure people's and your needs are in the best hands. And in the end, we improve the market and we all win. Maybe it does deserve a song. What do you think? Euro consumers. Empower people. Improve the market.